Hi everyone. So today we're going to have a look at the irregular verb, the verb to have. Now the verb to have means possess something, to have something that belongs to you. Now the verb to have is an irregular verb. This means it doesn't follow the standard pattern of verbs. It changes depending on the situation that it's being used in. Now we can have the verb to have changing to have, has, had, and will have. Now, these all depend on whether we're using first person, which is I and we, singular and plural, second person, which is you, and third person, singular, which is he, she, and it, and third person, plural, which is they. It can also change depending on whether we are using the past tense, the present tense, or the future tense. So let's have a look now at how the verb to have is used in all these different situations.
Do you speak English?
Yes, I do. Come join us. For help with pronunciation, intonation, fluency, accent production and more.
EasyNativeEnglish.com. Okay, so first we're going to look at the verb have in its first person singular form. This is where we have the I with the have because I is the first person. We're also going to look at it in the present tense. So if I want to say I have something now, I would say I have and then say whatever it is that I have. So let's have a look at some examples here. So this person here has got brown hair. She could say, I have brown hair. That shows that the hair belongs to her and the hair is brown. I have brown hair. Now the next one, I have green eyes. Again, she's showing possession. She has green eyes, so she would say, I have green eyes. Okay, the next one, I have a blue jumper. So she possesses a blue jumper, so she would say, I have a blue jumper. She's wearing a blue jumper now. And again, the next sentence, I have a baby. She has a baby now. It's in the present tense. So this shows first person, which is I, and it's in the present form, have. I have, and then whatever it is that belongs to her, she would say with that. Now we're going to look at one more thing here, because it says here, I have love for my baby. Now, so far, we have looked at things that are tangible, which means you can touch them. So, brown hair, you can touch your brown hair. Green eyes, you can touch your green eyes. A blue jumper, you can touch this. And a baby, you can touch a baby. Those are tangible things, things you can touch. But here we have love. Now, you can't touch love, but you can feel it. So you would still say you have love. If you feel it or you can touch it, then you would say that you have it. So in this case, it says, I have love for my baby. So she has love that she can now give to the baby. So it's something she has that she can give away. Okay, so here we can see that I have is used in the present tense, singular, first person form. Okay, we're now going to look at the first person plural form that we use with the verb have, and that is we. So we would mean myself and you, or myself and a group of other people. So when we're talking in the first person but plural, meaning there's more than one, then we can use we have. So it's still present tense. So let's have a look at some sentences using we have. So here, the couple here are talking about themselves, and they can say, we have brown hair, because they both have brown hair. Let's have a look at another one. We have a family. They're talking about themselves and they're saying, we have a family. Again, we have a baby. They're talking about themselves in the first person because they're together, and in the present tense, we have a baby. They have a baby now. Now, like we saw before, the things here are tangible, meaning they can be touched. They can touch the brown hair. They have a family. Members of the family can be touched, and a baby can be touched. But here we have the word responsibilities. Now, responsibilities cannot be touched. It's intangible, but they are things that you still possess. They are still things that you have. So because they have responsibilities, they can say, we have responsibilities. So all these things show belonging. We have brown hair, we have a family, we have a baby, we have responsibilities. We're now going to look at the verb have, but this time in the second person. Now the second person can be both singular or plural. This is when I use the word you. So if I'm talking about you, I'm talking about the second person. Now you can be just one person, or you can be more than one person. So I could be talking to 2 or 3 children if I say you. So I'm talking in second person. We're still going to look at present tense. So when we join the second person with have, we would say you have. So let's see how the verb have is used in belonging in these sentences. So I could be saying to this person, you have brown hair. I could also say, you have green eyes. Equally, I could say, you have a blue jumper. Also, you have a baby. So just like we saw in the other sentences, these are things that she possesses. These are things she has. So I would say, you have, and then whatever it is that she possesses. Now we're going to have a look at the verb have in third person plural. Now third person plural means we're looking at not I, not you, but everybody else. But because it's plural, it's more than one. So we're referring to they. They have. We're still in the present tense, and we're going to have a look at sentences that are in third person plural in present tense. So let's see what these look like. So we're talking about all these people. So we're saying they have brown hair. These 2 people, they have brown hair. I'm talking in third person. They have green eyes. Again, I'm talking in third person and saying they have green eyes. Now the next sentence, they have a baby. They have a baby. And like we said before, we can have intangible things, so they have responsibilities. The couple are responsible for their baby. They have responsibilities. I'm not talking about me, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about them. So they have responsibilities. Okay, let's now recap what we've learnt so far. We're looking at the verb to have in the present tense, and so far what we found is when we join it to the different people, it has stayed the same. So we have, I have brown hair. When I'm talking about myself in first person singular, I would say I have brown hair. Equally, if I'm talking about you and it's in present tense, I would say you have green eyes. Then, if I'm talking about myself and somebody else, I could say we have a baby. So again, I'm talking in first person but plural because there's more than just me. So we have a baby. So the have doesn't change. And if I'm talking in third person about somebody else, then I could say they have responsibilities. So the have in each of these cases has not changed. Now this does not always stay like this, and we will see that in the next slide. Okay, now we're going to have a look at a different form of the verb have. This is where the verb actually changes to has, and the reason it changes is because it's being used with the third person singular. Now third person, as we've seen before, is not me and is not you, it's somebody else. But here it's in the singular form. So here we use it with he, she, or it. We're still in the present tense, but because we're using the singular form, we've changed have to has. So let's have a look at some sentences. So, he has brown hair. Just him, nobody else. He has brown hair. She has green eyes. Just her, no one else. Now here we have something slightly different. Here we're referring to the baby, but because the baby is singular, again we use has. The baby has a yellow dress. The family has a dog. Because the family is one, it's singular, so again we use has, not have. The family has a dog. And finally, we can refer to the family as it. And because it's singular, we would say it has a dog. So, when we use the verb in the third person singular form, then it changes from have to has. Okay, we're now going to move on to the past tense. We're changing from the present to the past. We're going to look again at the first person singular, which is I. So when we join I to the past tense of have, we actually get I had. So let's have a look at some sentences. I had a run in the park earlier. I had a run in the park earlier. This tells me that I did it earlier. I did it before. It was in the past. It's not in the present. Now we have the sentence, I had some exercise. I did it before. I had some exercise. Now we have, I had a rest afterwards. It's something I did after the exercise, but it still happened before. So I had a rest afterwards. And then, I had a good time. It's something I did previously. I had a good time. The have changing to had tells me that it happened in the past. Okay, moving on to the first person plural. So we're now looking at we. So it's not just me, it's myself and somebody else. So we're still staying in the past tense and we're still using the had form of have. So let's have a look at some sentences again. We had a long chat. Myself and a friend had a long chat. We had a long chat. We had some coffee. We both had some coffee. Again, staying in the past tense, we had a laugh. We found things funny. The conversation we had was funny. We had a laugh. It's something that happened previously, before, in the past. We had a good time. Again, it happened in the past, so we had a good time. Now we're moving on to the second person. Now the second person can either be plural or singular. So we're referring again to you. So we're staying in the past tense. And when we use you in the past tense, the verb have changes again to had. So let's have a look at some sentences. You had a long chat. You had some coffee. You had a laugh. You had a good time. Now let's have a look at the third person plural of the verb have in the past tense. Again, this changes to had. So, they had a long chat. They had some coffee. They had a laugh. And they had a good time. So let's now recap what we've learned about the past tense of the verb have. When we use the past tense, the verb have changes to had. So, I had a baby girl. You had a surprise. We had a baby. They had responsibilities. As you can see, it doesn't matter whether it's the first person, second person, first person plural, or third person. We still use the verb have as had in each of these sentences. But what happens if we use the third person singular? Last time it changed. So when we used he, she and it changed when it was in the present tense. So what happens in the past tense? Well, actually in the past tense it stays the same. We still use had. Let's have a look. He had brown hair. She had green eyes. The baby had a yellow dress. The family had a dog. It had a dog. So as we can see, when we use the past tense, the have stays as had all the way through. It doesn't matter whether it's first, second or third person. It doesn't matter if it's singular or plural. Okay, let's now look at the future tense. Now, the future tense, like the past tense, actually does not change depending on the person. So we could have I, we, you, they, he, she, or it. And the have actually is will have for all of them. So let's have a look. I, first person, will have a family. You, second person, you will have a family. Third person, plural, they will have a family. Third person, singular, he or she will have a family. And third person, singular again, it will have a family. So the will have stays the same if we're talking about the future tense. Instead of saying have, we need to add will in front of it. But at least they all stay the same, and it doesn't matter which person it's in. Okay, here are all the variations of have, has, and had that we've looked at so far. So, it changes slightly only when we are looking at the present tense. So if we start with the past tense, we have I had a dog, we had a dog, you had a dog, they had a dog, he had a dog, she had a dog, it had a dog, the family had a dog. When we look at the present tense, it's I have a dog, we have a dog, you have a dog, they have a dog. But when we look at the singular, it's he has a dog, she has a dog, it has a dog, the family has a dog. Now looking at the future tense, I will have a dog, we will have a dog, you will have a dog, they will have a dog, he will have a dog, she will have a dog, it will have a dog, the family will have a dog. As you can see, in the past and the future, the verb stays the same. Only when we move into the present, it is have for all of these, but then when we go into the singular, then it changes to has. Okay, before we finish, I'd like to just mention that the verb have is often shortened. We often use an abbreviation. So let's have a look at the present tense. So, if we have a look at these sentences, instead of saying I have brown hair, which is perfectly right, we often say I've brown hair, meaning I have. We take out the H and the A and we put in an apostrophe to shorten the word, I've brown hair. We also say you've green eyes. It means you have, but we shorten it to you've and we put in an apostrophe. We've a baby. Again, the same, we have, but it's shortened to we've a baby. And then again, they've responsibilities. They have responsibilities, or it can be shortened when we're speaking to they've responsibilities. Okay, finally to recap, we're going to look at one more thing. We're going to look at another abbreviation, but this time in the future tense. This is where a lot of people get confused because the will have gets significantly shortened. It's abbreviated. So let's have a look at how will have gets shortened. So instead of I will, we say I'll, and the have changes to of. A lot of people mistake the of to of. It's not of, it's of. And then we will changes to we'll of a family. So I love a family, we'll love a family. Then we have you'll of a family. you'll have a family. They will have a family changes to they'll have a family. She or he will have a family changes to she'll have a family. It will have a family changes to it'll have a family. So, if we recap, I'll have a family, we'll have a family, you'll have a family, they'll have a family, she'll have a family, it'll have a family. As you can see, we don't pronounce every single word. They get blended together when they're abbreviated. And the have gets shortened to of, and most people mistake the of as of, but it isn't really. It's the have that's been shortened. So I hope you found that useful. So there are 6 ways that we can use the verb to have. We have, has, had, will have, and then the abbreviated forms of will have and of. Now, I hope you found that useful. There are other variations of have, such as with the ending having, but we'll look at that in another video. And then there are the other words that we could add, like should have, could have, but all of those we will look at in another video. So if you'd like to see the other video and would like notification of it, then subscribe to the channel and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!
If this video helped you, then please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also tell us in the comments section below if there are any other videos you'd like us to make. Thanks!